All right, great week of college football last week. Let's talk about this next week. We got UCLA, Utah on Friday, November 3rd, two 4-4 teams. I'm taking Utah. I think Rosen is hurt. He hurt throwing, his non-throwing thumb. So I'll take Utah to win. Both these teams have been bad lately. Both of them need a win. I'll take Utah at home, though. Florida, Missouri, I think McElwain just got fired or he's going to get fired, whatever. Missouri, Missouri's been about what people thought, 3-5. Florida is definitely underachieved. I'll take Florida to win the game, and I think, their defense will play good. And, it's funny how whenever a coach gets fired or whatever, the players just play. They don't really worry as much. Auburn A&M, Texas A&M. I'll take Auburn on the road. I think this is a good game for Auburn to win. Let's see here. Kansas State, Texas Tech, two 4-4 teams. Two teams that have, they're helter-skelter. They play really good one week, play bad the next, or whatever. It's kind of like, Texas Tech, we kind of thought, oh, that was a bad loss to Iowa State, but in reality, that's really not that bad of a loss. They didn't get killed. Kansas State, these are two teams that are in the pack of the Big 12. This is a big game for not for the Big 12 championship or anything like this, but this is a big game for Pac-12 play. Separate the bottom from the top in this one. Wisconsin, Indiana. I think Indiana is going to give them a game. Wisconsin didn't play, amazing against Illinois last week, but I think Wisconsin will win the game on the road. Penn State, Michigan State, a big good game out of the early window, the 11 o'clock window. I'll take Penn State to bounce back on the road against Michigan State. Both these teams coming off a loss. It'll be a big game. I think bigger game from Penn State, though. Syracuse, Florida State. I'll take Syracuse to win on the road. I hadn't been impressed with Florida State at all this year. Georgia Tech, Virginia. I'll take Georgia Tech on the road. South Carolina, Georgia at home. I'll take Georgia for sure. I don't know if I'll take the spread, though. Their spread is 24 points at this point. South Carolina is not a great team, but I don't think they're going to get killed by 24. Their defense is definitely better than that. Just if you don't let this Georgia offense jump on you early, then, you got a chance. So we'll see how that goes. Iowa State, West Virginia, real excited about this one. A big one for the Big 12. Iowa State's controlling their own destiny. They've got games against West Virginia, Oklahoma State later in the year, and they've beaten TCU and Oklahoma, so they can control their own destiny in a sense. Iowa State was looked at as a joke at the first year, at this point now, they have losses to Iowa and they have a loss to Texas. So, at the first of the year, their losses, you're like, they ain't that great. And thinking back, this team has been way more impressive than they have in the past years. But you thought that Oklahoma one was a fluke, after their loss to Texas, and then you talk about the Texas Tech one. They looked like they were, looked at as Tech was probably better than Iowa State at that point. Now how we look at Iowa State, and then just beating TCU. That was one of those. The Oklahoma one was definitely an upset, but the TCU one, TCU had to come in there, and TCU's offense got shut down. Matt Campbell's been doing a great job lately, but I think West Virginia is going to get the win. I'll take West Virginia at home. I think Greer bounces back from his bad game last week. But Kyle Kemp has been awesome for Iowa State. He's 4-0. He's got wins against Tech, TCU, Oklahoma, and whoever they beat that one week. Let's see here. Kansas, who cares? Let's see. Let's go down our list. Wake Forest, Notre Dame. I'll take Notre Dame for sure. They're just their whole team is just a crew. It's something you don't want to mess with. But Wake Forest has got a good defense, good offensive weapons. But I'll take Notre Dame. Stanford, Washington State. I'm kind of off the Washington State bandwagon. I've been off of it for a while. I picked Arizona last week to beat them. Stanford, I think, will win the game. If Love gets to play, I think Love will probably play. I think this is probably the reason why I sat out last week, was to keep him healthy for this game so he could play this one. I'll take Stanford on the road. Good game. We'll see if Luke Falk can get back into the starting quarterback role. Leach has not liked what he's seen out of him a couple of different times, and he's benched him for the backup, and the backup is fucking good. The backup looks like he's going to be a good guy whenever Falk leaves. Ohio State, Iowa, Iowa's gave some good teams hell this year. They beat Iowa State. They gave Penn State hell, so it's in Iowa. So we'll see how that game goes. Ohio State coming off a big win. Maybe they'll be sleeping. I'll take Ohio State to still win. Northwestern Nebraska, good Big Ten game here. I'll take Nebraska to win at home. Rutgers Maryland, I'll take Maryland to win on the road. Clemson NC State, a big game out of the 2:30 window. NC State lost Notre Dame last week. It wasn't that turnovers was really the reason that they got knocked out of that game. I see that their defense plays pretty good against Clemson, but I'll take Clemson for sure to win the game. As I go down our list, Ole Miss, Kentucky, I'll take Kentucky. Ole Miss backup quarterback looks pretty good, but I'll still take Kentucky. Kentucky's pretty resilient. Benny Snell's pretty good running back. Oklahoma versus Oklahoma State, big game this next week. I'm going to go out with Oklahoma State. I have not been impressed with Oklahoma this year. In the most part, I just hadn't been impressed with them. They are coming off a bye week, which is going to be vital for them. It's going to help them a lot. But they're going into Oklahoma State. Oklahoma State has circled this game all year. Mason Rudolph does play well against the Sooners. I'm taking Oklahoma State to win the game. It's going to be a real good game, a good bedlam. As we go down, Cal, Oregon State, I'll for sure take Cal at home. Wyoming, Colorado State, I'm going to go Colorado State on the road. Texas, TCU, I think Texas plays good, but I think TCU bounces back from their loss last week. UCF and SMU, good game here. I'll take UCF over SMU, but this will be a good one. Southern Miss, Tennessee, watch out. Southern Miss might cause an upset right here over Tennessee. Minnesota, Michigan. I'll take Michigan for sure. I have not been impressed with Minnesota this year, but obviously I haven't been impressed with Michigan. But Michigan, new quarterback Peters is looking good. LSU, Alabama, we got that this next week. Both teams will be coming off a bye. I think LSU plays them better than people expect, but I think Alabama definitely gets the win. This is a game that has probably been the biggest game of the year in the 2010s decade. This has probably been the biggest matchup, year to year that you can look forward to, and this is the first year that's really not that great of a matchup. LSU just doesn't have the same class that Alabama does. Virginia Tech, Miami, another very good one. Playoff implications. This game probably decides that side of the ACC. I don't know if that's the Coastal or the Atlantic, the side that Clemson's not on. Virginia Tech, Miami battling it out. Miami's undefeated. You can play into it, but let's look at their schedule. Who have they beat? We got excited about a Florida State game that they barely won, where look what Florida State's became. They slaughtered Duke. Duke's terrible. They beat Toledo pretty good. Toledo's not a big school. They destroyed Bethlehem Cookman or whatever. Georgia Tech, they beat them by 1. We saw what happened to Georgia Tech against Clemson. They beat Syracuse by 8, and Syracuse played like shit all day. And then they just played a 1-7 North Carolina, and they barely got past them. Not impressed with Miami. I think Miami gets slaughtered this next week against Virginia Tech. Virginia Tech not necessarily has been tested the same way, but Virginia Tech has played Clemson and they lost to Clemson. They have beat a good West Virginia team, and they are slaughtering every team that they play in a division. So I'm going Virginia Tech for sure. I don't think this is a close game. I think, they just hype it up. But this is going to be Miami's first loss for sure. Colorado, Arizona State, good defensive game here. I'll take Arizona State to beat Colorado at home. I think they bounced back after their loss to USC last week. Oregon, Washington, I'll take Washington for sure. Oregon's looked better. Maybe Justin Herbert will be back, but I'll still take Washington. Arizona, USC. Big game. I'm really liking this game. I'm going with Arizona. I'll continue to go with Arizona every week. They're on the road. I'm going with them again. I don't think anybody in the country can stop Khalil Tate. I don't think anybody can stop this offensive game, because the thing is he is not necessarily like every time they go to, okay, well, we're going to just cover him. Then he beats them through the air. He beats one of the backs beats them. It's not just him. Like, this whole offense is beating teams. I talked about last week. We'll see how this team goes forward, talking about last week. Can they Can they, create some nuances and not just be about Khalil Tate? Because, for the first 2 weeks that worked. Let's see what happens now when teams know he's coming. And, Washington State gave up 58 still. So, and now Arizona's in the top 25. I mean, look at me. Look how smart I am. I've had Arizona in my top 25 for 2 weeks now because I see things before they happen. But, who fucking cares? Let's go back to last week. Let's talk about some games from last week. Stanford, Oregon State. This is a game that really shows how important Bryce Love is. Stanford wins 15-14, no Bryce Love. They play like absolute dog shit all day, almost lose to a 1-6 Oregon State team. So Heisman voters, you see that. Bryce Love is very vital to the Stanford success, 6-2 on the season for Stanford. Boston College had a huge game against Florida State. Florida State couldn't get anything going offensively. Boston College continued to score. SMU and Tulsa. SMU wins the game after Justin Hobbs decides that he's too cool and he's going to do a little showboat into the end zone. It's a penalty. They take the touchdown away. They put him at the 30. They kick a field goal instead. What's the final score of the game? 38-34 SMU. How many points did they need? 4. How many points did Justin Hobbs catch him? Catch him 4. So that's the difference in the game. Sucks for Tulsa, but Tulsa sucks this year anyway, so it don't matter. They're not going anywhere. Arkansas, Ole Miss. Arkansas was getting slaughtered 31-7 early. They come back late. I think his name's Cody Kelly, I think is his name. Quarterback's like 6'8". Kid's not bad. He can run a little bit too. Oklahoma State absolutely slaughtered West Virginia. Jumped on them early, jumped on them quick. The only thing that kept West Virginia in this game, obviously their offense woke up in the fourth quarter, but in the third quarter, basically back-to-back turnovers for West Virginia that led to 14 points. That got them back in the game. They're down 6 at that point, but then they went down by 21 again or so, 19 right after that. So, it wasn't really ever a close game, but, the illusion of a close game, 50-39. Texas slaughtered Baylor. Wisconsin handled Illinois. Michigan handles Rutgers. Michigan brings Peters in finally because O'Korn is dog shit. I've been calling for him to be dropped for weeks. Miami creeps past North Carolina on their third-string quarterback. North Carolina had their third-string quarterback and still almost beat Miami. Miami is not a top 10 team. I'm dropping them at my top 10 this week because I'm not impressed with them, and I know they're going to lose to Virginia Tech anyways. Wake Forest slaughtered Louisville. Can't say his name. Dortch, 10 receptions, 167 yards, 4 touchdowns. This kid's a freshman. Fucking, he's amazing. Fucking, you got to watch this kid next week against Notre Dame. I think he'll have a good game. Pitt, Virginia. Pitt won like I thought. Colorado won over Cal like I thought. Kansas State handles Kansas. Air Force comes out with a big win over Colorado State at Colorado State. Big game for Colorado schools. Georgia slaughtered Florida. Not even close. It was 21-0 before I even looked at the game. Iowa State. Great game against TCU. Didn't give up an offensive touchdown. The only touchdown was Turnip, who had a return kick to start the second half. Iowa State, at times, kind of kicked themselves in the foot. They could have been up by 10 for most of the game. Missed field goal after a long. But the main thing about this game, I don't want to forget it, was Kenny Hill. Kenny Hill was the reason that TCU was 7-0 at this point because Kenny Hill was 15-2, touchdown to interception ratio. What was Kenny Hill today? Kenny Hill was 0-2, and he also had a fumble. Where did these fumbles and interception happen? 2 of them happened basically in the red zone. 1 happened on the goal line. 1 happened around the 20. He probably got sacked at the 25 or so, whatever. 2 basically happened in the red zone. The last one happened when he was forcing things at the end of the game. So the last one, okay, we'll give you that one. But the other 2, I don't know what to say about. Like I said at the first of the year in my videos, this team will go how Kenny Hill goes. And as you can see, Kenny Hill didn't go, so TCU doesn't go. Notre Dame, NC State. This was a game 14-14. Both offenses were working. Both offenses looked good. Notre Dame got a touchdown, went up 21-14. And then, second half started. And then, turnover started happening for NC State, 28-14. And then big Josh Adams takes over. He's got to be considered for Heisman now. He's got over 1,000 yards this year. He's missed like 9 quarters. I think he's been taken out before games have been over, so he hadn't even played the whole year. And they won by 21. We're talking about best balance other than Alabama of offense, defense. Talk about Georgia, pretty good balance. Clemson, pretty good balance. Notre Dame has very good balance on offense and defense. Washington handles UCLA. UCLA Rosen went down, thumb injury on his non-throwing hand. Northwestern solves the enigma of Michigan State. They outlast Michigan State. Clayton Thorson had a real good game. Triple overtime game. Michigan State just couldn't keep up. Michigan State came back late. You thought Michigan State was probably gonna get it done in overtime. They couldn't get it done. Maryland, Indiana. This is a pretty good game for two not that great of Big Ten teams. Maryland was able to come out on top. It was a good touchdown scoring game. It was fun to watch. Ohio State, Penn State, big game of the week. I predicted it. Ohio State winning. Getting to come back. A lot of people predicted it. It wasn't that hard to see. But what was hard to see was 14-0 Penn State. And then, we talk about, they went up 14-0. Why did you kick to Saquon Barkley? 14-0 pretty early after turnovers. Ohio State kicked themselves in the balls to start the game. And, when you looked at halftime, I said 28-17. They've done a really good job of getting themselves back in this game. Got the field goal to start the second half, 28-20. Really had Penn State on their heels the whole game, even though that 14-point lead. And as the game went, Penn State was scoring off of turnovers, big plays. They never moved the ball down the field. 2 of Ohio State's first couple touchdowns were drives down the field. So I said, as going on in the game, Ohio State's not out of this game. They're playing good. They're driving down the field. They're doing what teams have not been able to do against Penn State all year, score the ball. Penn State gave up 9 points on the year average. Before this, they gave up 39 to Ohio State. Was Penn State's defense really that good, or is it because they hadn't played anybody? So that's what I ask. And then, Saquon didn't do much. McSorley didn't do a whole lot. Gesicki was really big in the passing game for Penn State, in times in this game. McSorley made some big throws. But, we talk about 35-20 after that long touchdown to DeAndre Tompkins, which was, at first looked like a pick. And then I saw it after I saw it, I was like, that's a touchdown. And then I kind of even said, maybe that is a pick. I really didn't know, but it was a touchdown. And then fourth quarter, huge turnover by I thought it was over. He had a big turnover in the fourth. TJ Barrett, he tried to pull the ball on a read option, and it just flew. And Penn State got it. I thought Penn State's going to run this ball, and they're going to either get another touchdown and make it unreachable, or, and what happened? 3 and out. They give the ball right back. TJ Barrett didn't go over there and start pouting or whatever. He looked very poised. He's a very poised quarterback. Let them back down the field, 38-33. They're only down by 5, and then Penn State gets the ball back and does nothing with it like they've done the whole second half and most of the game. And then, Ohio State is hot as hell, and they get the ball back and they score real quick. I thought they scored too quick. I thought they gave, Penn State a little bit too much time, but Penn State couldn't get it done. Ohio State's defense looks really good. It made me look really good that Ohio State won the game. Happy about the result. USF, Houston was able to get on top of them. It was one of those just back and forth the entire game, back and forth. And it was like Houston had the ball last. USF couldn't get in the end zone. They kicked the field goal. Houston could, and they took the lead with like 11 seconds. Looks like Houston found their new quarterback. And King, Derek King had a huge game for them. Ran the ball really well too. Did it with some backup running back and backup quarterbacks, which was more impressive than anything for Houston. South Carolina was able to beat Vanderbilt by a touchdown. Good game there. South Carolina continues to win. They're 6-2. Got Georgia this next week, like we talked about. Oregon, Utah. Oregon was able to beat Utah pretty easily. Utah has just not showed up the last couple of weeks. I think they started the year 4-0. Now they're 4-4. Iowa, Minnesota. I was able to come out on top. Big Ten, low scoring Big Ten game. Mississippi State slaughtered A&M in A&M. That was a surprise. Nick Fitzgerald, as always, looked really good. Good game there. And to finish the day off, Tennessee, Kentucky. Kentucky came back and beat Tennessee. Good game there. Glad to see Tennessee continue to lose. Makes me really happy. Nebraska was down by about 2 touchdowns against Purdue. I think it was 12 points, 12-24. Two good drives in the fourth quarter by Tanner Lee, and got him back in this game. And they scored on that last possession, and they won 25-24. Good game. Purdue definitely outplayed Nebraska, though. Purdue definitely looks good this year. I like what I've seen out of Purdue. Texas Tech, Oklahoma State, barn burner in the first half. Texas Tech couldn't be stopped. They've really figured out their offense after what Iowa State did to it last week, but Oklahoma just was too much. They continued to score in the second half where Texas Tech didn't. Clemson, Georgia Tech. Clemson went up early. It was 21-0 or 21-3 before we knew it. 24-10 to end the game. It was a rainy game. Really thought that it would be good for Georgia Tech, running the ball and stuff, but that didn't help. Arizona absolutely slaughtered Washington State. I will say that Luke Falk did struggle at the first of the game, and it did help, them get out to this little bit of a lead. But at halftime, it was 23-14. Washington State was still in this game. In the second half, they scored 2 touchdowns with Tyler Helinski at quarterback after he came in right before the half. They're up 27-23, and then boom, Khalil Tate, J.J. Taylor take over. They go up 37-27, and then before we know it, it's 51-30 after a pick by Colin Schuler. I mean, this team is ridiculous, and it's kind of like Fresno State. You're kind of like, where the fuck did this team come from? What the fuck have they? But, you talk about this team, they lost to Utah by 6, lost to Houston by 3. In the last 4 weeks, they've scored over 45 points. They were averaging 46 before this, and then they scored 56. They're averaging about 50 points a game. They got USC on their schedule next. We'll see how that goes. Then Oregon State, then Oregon, then Arizona State. This is definitely, if they win this next game, they're looking at 7-2, 8-2, 9-2. They could potentially be 10-2 by the end of this year if they win out. But in USC, they slaughtered Arizona State. They came out on top. Big game there. And then Fresno State, a team that we talked about. I've talked a lot about how good they look and stuff. And they lost to UNLV, a team that was 2-5 before last week. So that's how that goes. Gets San Diego State back into the picture of the Mountain West.